province has said you can smoke cannabis where you can smoke tobacco, so that part of this report is a moot point, right? We're discussing licensing, but the previous council decided we were going to opt out and not allow any retail sales in Norfolk County. 3 days after that, the province changed the rules of the game. So are we here to decide whether we're going to opt in or out again?
Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the issue was council made the decision before the legislation was enacted, so it doesn't actually hold weight in reference to the January 22nd deadline. So any council that had made a decision before the Cannabis Act had received royal assent would have to go back and make their decision again before January 22nd. So there's technically no decision on the books right now. So we aren't asking you to make a decision simply because you can do each one time. So the default is opt-in. If you decided now to opt out, you would still have the ability to come back and opt in again later on. But that would be, you'd lose out on the $76,000 and other things that the province is offering for ones that do make the decision to be involved before January 22nd. But the default, just for council's understanding, the default is that you are opted in right now.
We are opted in automatically. Okay. So if we do nothing, retail sales will be allowed in Norfolk County, and all we can regulate is that retail stores are where we currently allow retail stores. We can't specifically rezone for cannabis stores. Okay. So if we just do nothing, people can start applying for licenses in the spring, and we would allow that. Okay.
Saw a hand here. Madam Mayor, did you have your hand up?
I guess it's just a bit of a loose question to address Tom's concern about having multiple stores. It would be fair to say, somebody with experience in the planning department, that, for example, we don't regulate the number of pizza stores in Port Dover. So I guess I think that it would also be fair to say, in your experience in the planning department, and given that you see different businesses in different areas, that stores typically would be the positioning of them, the market would dictate that. So it wouldn't make sense for somebody to open 5 marijuana stores or 5 pizza stores, one next to one another. Maybe that wasn't the best example given what I said about.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, through the chair. I believe you're correct. I'm hoping that the AGCO shares the location of those licenses once they are established, though, so that at least those who want to get into the game know where their competition is, so that what you've said is true. Because otherwise, you're guessing where other stores are going to go.
Are you aware of what they are entitled to do marketing-wise, of the restrictions that are being imposed?
From my understanding, I believe it's very similar to tobacco right now. So yeah, and again, that may change.
And Councillor Taylor.
Has the province been listening to the comments of the municipality so far? For example, was including cannabis in Bill 57 discussed prior to the announcement, or has it all just been a surprise along the way?
Mr. Lowe.
If I may answer the specific point about Bill 57, because I believe I have an answer. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Taylor. AMO briefed the government just before the Standing Committee on Social Reform, I believe that standing committee is called, so after second reading, before third reading, royal assent. AMO did include that in their submissions, but when it wasn't amended in there during the line-by-line review at the standing committee, there had been an expectation that it wasn't listened to, and then obviously through Bill 57, which is sort of an omnibus legislative update, they put it in there. So I think we can infer that they did listen. It was just a matter of timing. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Hoffman.
I just want to go back to the point that you said in regards to, so currently licensed producers will automatically be given a license.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, so how many of these licensed producers do we have in Norfolk County? What are we referring to when we're talking about these licensed producers?
Okay, so there are two streams of production.
Freudian slip.
Yeah. Stream one is the Part 1 facilities, so that's a licensed producer.
Okay.
Very much regulated by Health Canada in terms
Okay,
of...
so we can say that the plant, the group that was here
Wayland,
earlier.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
Wayland
all right.
Group is one of those licensed producers.
Okay.
Currently, we have approved 5. There are 5 licensed producers approved in the county right now,
5, okay.
and there are a lot more than that in the process of coming online. So, yeah, so it will be different in the future.
So when we're talking about these, and I'm sorry, I might be going off topic a little bit, but I just want to get my head wrapped around everything. So these 5 approved that we're speaking about, are they defined in terms of, we have that tier 1, tier 2 kind of?
So they, through the chair, they are considered a Part 1 facility. So
Okay.
the other facility that you're aware of is the Part 2 facilities, where anyone who has a prescription can apply for a registration from Health Canada to grow their own cannabis.
Okay.
Those facilities are the issue right now because
Correct.
they're not regulated by Health Canada. They've let us know that they don't have the resources to regulate them. They don't
Okay.
inspect them. They're based completely on the prescription a user has, and some of those prescriptions enable people to grow up to 1,000 plants each. So each facility is capable of having 4 registrations. So if you only have 1 address, you can grow up to 4,000 plants. The more addresses you have, it just compounds the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are these the individuals that will be getting a license or no?
No.
Okay.
No, very different streams.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they were to apply as an LP, they would have to change a lot of what they do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Shelley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt, I just want to ask a question that's not directly connected to retail, but it is part of this joint report. It mentions that on page 55, under the anticipated conflicts regarding cannabis, that the large producers are required to have apparatus in place to mitigate the strong odors of cannabis. But other producers who are licensed and who may automatically be receiving automatic retail licenses, there is no specific mention of what requirements they're going to have for them to reduce the odors that are affecting neighbors and other people through the smell and the possible health problems that could be associated. So I'm wondering if you could just speak to that for a moment.
Through the chair. Luckily, in March of this year, the former council approved a policy putting all types and forms of cannabis production under the same umbrella. So whether you're a Part 1 licensed producer or whether you're a Part 2 registered designated grower, you are required to comply and conform with our zoning bylaw, all in the same way. And that use is also, luckily for us, under site plan control as well. So we have specific setback requirements for those facilities, again, regardless of what type they are. We have light emission quality control, so they can't have that stadium effect. There's odor, specific policy relating to odor built into the policy. And as part of our site plan process, we actually collect securities for both light emission abatement and odor control. So once they go through the process, and when we go to inspect the facility, sort of at the end of that process, we double check that things like light emissions and odor are under control, and then they get their securities back. So there's a very neat and tidy closed loop system to make sure that they are complying with the zoning bylaw.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I do have a question too, Matt. And someone called me just a couple days ago. Would there be, this licensing by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission, would there be an opportunity for direct farm sales, like where you could get a license right off the farm, just like wine or whatever?
Yeah. So it's an interesting question because, like you said, like wine, the way that works is the producer or manufacturer will make the product. It's inventoried by the AGCO, and then sales, the sales channel for that is all goes through that license. So the province keeps a really close tab on all of that. I assume it would be very similar, so that the licensed producers would have a similar system. They would have likely an inventory. They would keep track of that inventory, and there'd be audits and that sort of thing to keep track of it.
You're saying there is a possibility
Yep.
that a grower could actually have a retail license?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Anything else? No? Okay, there is a recommendation printed in this extensive report, and it's on page 63. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rabbits and Councillor Michelli seconds that motion. That staff report CAO 19-01 be received as information, and that council directs staff to provide comments to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario in respect to proposed retail locations that are incorrectly zoned for that activity. And the last one, the clerk says we do not require that last paragraph. Does everybody understand the recommendation? Call the vote. Those in favor? Anybody opposed? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, I see Mr. Rusnak has arrived. We called you earlier, Dave. I guess you misunderstood that we start at 3 o'clock. Yep, okay, so you can take the podium. We'll go to you now. This is with respect to the Delhi Rail Trail. You have 10 minutes, David, and I'll notify you when you have 1 minute left, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to congratulate Honorable Mayor Crystal Chop and members of council in their elected positions, as a new day has surely dawned for Norfolk. I trust by now you have received my copies of the local newspaper articles in regards of the abandonment of the 6.6 miles of the Canadian National Railway line from Fernley Side Road east of Cortland to the Fertilizer Road east of Delhi, where the rail line ends. This is why I'm here tonight for the second time on this topic before the old and new Norfolk Council to sound the alarm of train whistle for the betterment of Norfolk County and the hometown of Delhi. About 2 months ago, I had talked to Canadian National Railway's Daniel Chan by phone in my efforts of saving this abandoned line, where he replied, "You better act soon." To briefly go back in time, 500 citizens of Delhi in 1870 heard the exciting news that finally a railway line was to be built south of the then village. Bonuses, grants, and other incentives was the norm to attract a railroad to be welcomed into any town in Norfolk County, albeit Canada. After 116 years of the line's existence to Delhi, Norfolk, it is now threatened to be torn up and highly unlikely to ever return, and our yesteryear investment was forgotten. This reminds me in the Simple Reformer dated Thursday, April 24, 2002, in reference to another rail line, the Queso Sub, known as the Canada Southern Railroad, that traveled through Waterford, north of Delhi to Tillsonburg, and today doesn't exist. Tillsonburg Mayor Irv Horton is quoted as saying, "It simply would be completely illogical not to use it. It could create a swath of new jobs along the corridor." Further, he said, "I see this as a definite economic advantage to this area. There is no question we're missing the boat by letting it go. 20 years from now, people will wonder how the opportunity got by." Now, doesn't that foretell and ring a train bell? If I ran for council, this for me would be in the top 5 on my to-do list. Today, Tillsonburg has approximately 6 industries on the rail line that the Delhi-Norfolk line was part of and still could be. 8 railroads at one time crossed Norfolk County. Port Rowan was served by 1. The railway junction towns of Port Dover, 3. Simcoe, 4. Waterford, 3. All have become a distant memory, our forgotten past, a ghost train of sorts to our peril. In 1998, Trillium Railway, also known as St. Thomas and Eastern, had leased the line from CN from Delhi to the east side of St. Thomas as CN deemed it profitable for a short-line railroad. In Delhi, the last train hauling 4 hopper cars departed on December 20th, 2013, almost 5 years ago, from the FS Partners Gromart Fertilizer Plant. The end result, cause and effect, FS Partners had planned to expand in Delhi, but due in part the line was being abandoned, they chose to expand their facility in Ayr, Ontario, instead where a rail line exists, where fertilizer is now being trucked into Delhi instead, totally unnecessary. I hope in the long term this isn't the cause for one of Delhi's Norfolk oldest industries to close. It has been rail dependent since the early 1950s. In regards for the abandonment, Trillium Railway did not have the funds to replace the railway ties on the 3 trestles of this line in New Sarum, that's near Aylmer, Tillsonburg, and Delhi, which needs to be done every 40 years. In short order, CN in 2017 did invest $680,000 on the 1,260-foot trestle in Tillsonburg, an unknown amount on the 380-foot trestle in New Sarum. The 1,057-foot trestle in Delhi is estimated to be $500,000. The Ontario Southern Railway has been leasing this line since 2015 minus Delhi and was using Tillsonburg's second rail line, Canadian Pacific, that is also leases to service customers until repairs was done to Tillsonburg CN trestle as noted previously. In Cortland, Cargo Fertilizer suspended its rail service for about a year pending its sale. Now that the new owners have taken possession, I observed last week 2 hopper cars at the plant siding on Thursday, December 8, 2018. That is very, very good news for that part of the line's survival, the fertilizer plant, and maintaining jobs. Today, less than 4 miles of trackage is in use in all of Norfolk County, not enough for long-term considerations. Demographics change. Are we prepared? The more trackage survives, the better the odds of attracting and maintaining much-needed manufacturing industries. In 2011, an ethanol plant was proposed to be built opposite the FS fertilizer plant. Sadly, it didn't materialize. Point being, they chose this location due to rail accessibility. Interestingly, and previous to this, Aylmer has an ethanol plant along this line. Long ago, Delhi-Norfolk County should have purchased land alongside the rail corridor, like prosperous and diversified town of neighboring Tillsonburg did along number 3 highway, so to guarantee, safeguard this environmentally friendly optional mode of transportation. Wise decision on their part. Unfortunately, thus far cannot be said in our part. This is our last chance to make industrial rail amends. Norfolk County's other now non-existent rail communities have placed the manufacturing industrial torch into Delhi to be the new industrial hub of Norfolk County, whether they realize it or not, based, of course, of reopening the line. With recent upgrades of the Delhi sewage treatment plant, past year's upgrades to the water filtration plant with its wells and its close proximity to the 401 makes Delhi, on behalf of Norfolk County, a prime, ideal, ripe, and win-win location to compete with its neighboring counties. In Norfolk County's Economic Development Strategy Review at Delhi's German Hall, held a few months ago, the rail line is still held in highest regard for our full future potential. As I, and to their credit, Councilors Roger Geisens and Mike Columbus being in attendance, where, incidentally, the rail line runs through their wards. I respectfully request that Norfolk County appoints a delegation to lead with lots of heart, passion, strong resolve, and to leave no railway stone unturned. We must steam ahead with CN, Ontario Sutherland, FS Partners, McLaughlin Brothers, Delhi Warehousing, with Diane Finley and Toby Barrett's offices, Keep in mind, too, that Public Works could have their road salt delivered by rail from Goddard's as a distribution center in this part of Norfolk and area, as suggested by Jordan Friedrich of Delhi. After all, the more rail traffic, the better. If FS Partners doesn't go all aboard on this, irregardless, the line must be kept open. With caution, then, let this come as no shock, no surprise, no wonder. When dealing with CN, it's imperative that an independent engineer inspects the trestle, as they are prone to inflate, exaggerate costs, so says a CN employee who wants to remain anonymous, and railway advocates' previous experience. Delhi itself desperately needs to get out of its slumber of being a retirement community, so as to aid its youth in downtown core.
1 minute left, Dave.
What I'm about to say is next is intertwined with my topic of discussion. Norfolk has my individual endorsement to spend $2.1 million on Miser's Dam Port Dover. Why? For all of its tourism industrial needs, as discussed over the years. As I stated in the Port Dover Maple Leaf on March 20th, 2002, 16 years ago, 7 years before Norfolk County started to address it, I am quoted saying they should check their historic dams and make necessary repairs before it's too late. For example, if Miser's Dam in Port Dover collapses, then what's happened to Silver Lake and the park that's being developed there? If the dam were to go, the silt to fill does a displeasure for Dover's pleasure craft fishing boats. In Delhi, our tobacco leaf-filled kilns is waning, and our horse hauling its tobacco boat has walked off into the sunset. Norfolk Council's harbor of goodwill in Port Dover is equally important for Delhi's bridge or trestle over troubled waters. In Port Dover, we want to keep our cups Silver Lake full and the water to runneth over the dam. In Delhi, we have a train to catch. Finally, being that it's Christmas and New Norfolk County is of fresh mind and spirit and good cheer and of giving, Norfolk will not then be a miser towards Port Dover's dam, and at the same time will be a bridge or trestle of opportunity in Delhi.
Time's up, David.
Can I have 10 seconds?
10 seconds.
Because in Norfolk, let it be said, the world over, that Norfolk gives a damn, Meisner that is, and we know where we are heading in the new year with our industrial jobs in Delhi, Norfolk, and we will take the train from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as you can tell, David is a lover of Delhi and rail lines. Been at it for a long time. I just wanted to add something before we get into questions. There was a project, and Pam would know about this, Ms. Dusling, whereby a company was going to put solar panels along the track. They had an option to option that rail line from CN Rail. Well, I found out this week that that option is off the table and the deal has closed off. That will not be happening because the Ontario government has taken away the carbon tax, the green energy incentive, so that is not happening. So it's back in the hands of CN Rail, that whole rail line.
And if I may interject, I did talk to Dennis German over 2 months ago from German Solar Corp to rule him out, and he said exactly, it's in CN's hands.
Right. So, questions to Mr. Rusnak? Not many questions here. Okay. Yes, Madam Mayor.
Just curious, what kind of, I know you wouldn't have this in detail, but what kind of a rough cost estimate?
My understanding to replace those railway ties is $500,000.
And do you have an estimate of business that you think that it would generate to the area, or
Well,
just generally speaking?
It's just generally speaking that if we rid of this mode of transportation, all the jobs, as I see today, at least in Delhi, they travel to Tillsonburg. And I know all the industries in Tillsonburg aren't rail dependent, but they have that option where over Norfolk, they'll have that one over on us. And we have to be in a competing field with them in all our surrounding neighboring counties.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Baird to speak because I saw the deputation down on paper here, and I asked him to bring us up to date. He's been communicating about the CN rail line because there have been numerous complaints about some of the crossings that haven't been kept up. So, Mr. Baird?
Thanks, Chair Columbus. To Council, the rail crossing, the level crossing in Delhi, it's on James Street, right near the German Hall. That's been hasn't been used, as Mr. Rusnak has said, since about 2013. Continues to plague motorists that cross that every day. Public Works staff try unending to get CN to come out and do repairs to that level crossing. The ties fly out, the rails loosen up, and vehicle damage results. So we've been after them to try to fix that location. We finally got some success in terms of hopefully next year looking at removing everything so we can just pave right over and we won't have that problem. Not to go contrary to Mr. Rusnak's deputation, but there's not much further to go east. It then becomes the Delhi-Simcoe Rail Trail. So it's really the section from Delhi westerly into Cortland and Tilsonburg. But what is problematic is the trestle and how many trains and which train operator would use that. And I would suggest the example he gave that relates to municipal operations with road salt. We have road salt delivered to about 11 locations in the county, and it's all trucked in. It's much faster. It's not to say that that wouldn't be an option, but whether it's a sustainable option, it's hard to say. But there is a big cost. I can't really speak to that, but certainly from the James Street crossing, I want council to be aware because many of you have or you will receive calls about the condition of that crossing and the crossing infrastructure, the signals, it's our intention to see removed so that we can clean up that area so it's much safer. That's all I've got, Council.
Just to add to that James Street crossing, I get a lot of calls about it. There are 10 to 13,000 vehicles a day across that crossing. So it is pretty important, and there have been loads spilt there, which ties up the traffic significantly. Any questions more for David? Okay, if not, I need a mover and a seconder to accept his deputation as information. Mover, Councilor Ravitz and Councilor Martin. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, David. You may be seated. Okay. We will now move to, or do they want a break? Does anybody want a break? Okay, the chairman's going to call for a 10-minute break, okay? If you could be back here at 25 after. The food is ready in the back, okay? Okay, looks like we do have a quorum back at the table. Yeah, there you are. 5 members. So we will reconvene the council and committee meeting for December 11th here. We had a break for a bit of a bite to eat. It was longer than 10 minutes because the food was here. So we are moving on to page 65, and this is the report with respect to the award of the Integrity Commissioner, RFP COAO CS 18-01. And who's looking after this one? Or is it Mr. Griselle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report relates to the award of an RFP for Integrity Commissioner Services. As approved by Council, staff undertook a competitive process for this service in accordance with the county's purchasing policies and procedures. Aird and Burles were the successful vendor, being both the lowest price per point and the highest in overall points. As a result, staff are recommending John Mascarin, along with associates Lauren Dean, Monica Cirello, Megan Barrett, and Rebecca Hines to be appointed to provide Integrity Commissioner services. To highlight, Mr. Mascarin is among the preeminent experts in this field across Ontario. I have a recent book here on the Ontario Municipal Act that he authored the commentary on. That's a 2019 one, so he's really at the forefront of a number of areas with municipal legislation. We are particularly fortunate that he's at the forefront of municipal conflict of interest law. This is an area where we anticipate the majority of services will be required. We're also fortunate that his firm does a great deal of work in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, which largely prevents them from being employed there as an integrity commissioner. So as a result, we're able to get one of the most respected integrity commissioners in the province within the estimated 5-year cost provided to council in April of this year. So to highlight, we are getting exceptional dollar value in this RFP. Upon approval, we will arrange to have Mr. Mascarin attend a meeting to provide a training session on municipal conflict of interest and answer any questions you may have. I could talk at length about Integrity Commissioner services and the process we undertook, but I think it's best to be brief on this. The only other aspect I would mention is that we were required by the province to have an Integrity Commissioner prior to March 1st. And with that, I'll try my best to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. This is a mandatory requirement for the province, so questions? Councillor Martin?
I have so many, I don't know if I should just go right
Is your
through them.
microphone on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. In doing some previous reading, the bylaw 2018-33, section 3.1 stipulates that we're appointing integrity commissioner or contracting an integrity commissioner for 5 years. I would wonder why, just out of curiosity, because I don't know anything about it. Why 5 years and how did that come about?
Through you, Mr. Chair. 5 years is a fairly, we looked at a lot of other municipalities, and 5 years is kind of a standard term for Integrity Commissioner services. We always like the term to be just slightly longer than councils because we don't want necessarily the next council to have to appoint one immediately, so that there's a bit of a carryover.
Okay, and section 3.2 says retained by council, fee for service, or retainer fee and fee for service. In doing some research, I wondered why isn't the integrity commissioner position a pay-per-use service, and further, which way are we going? Are we doing fee for service, or are we doing retainer fee plus fee for service?
Good question.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, very, very good question, Councillor Martin. There previously a lot of municipalities purchased integrity commissioner services on a retainer basis. With our municipality, we didn't know if we would have a lot of regular work for them. It's really dependent on how much you as council members really have needs for conflict of interest advice. And for that reason, we focused on the fee for service. So that's what we're looking at.
Okay, any more?